Okay, so ready to dive into this idea of finding fulfillment at work.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
We've got some really fascinating material to unpack here.
Yeah.
Excerpts from Clayton Christensen's How Will You Measure Your Life?
Great book.
And this fictional story about Lee Kauron, a journalist who's kind of at a career crossroads.
So,
It's amazing how a good story can really bring those big picture ideas to life.
totally. And it's so interesting how often we find ourselves, chasing those external markers of success.
Oh, absolutely.
The big salary, the impressive title,
Yeah.
without really stopping to ask ourselves, do these things actually align with what makes me tick?
Yeah, it's like that aha moment I had when I first read Christensen, that whole idea of hygiene factors versus motivators.
Yeah.
You mentioned wanting a higher salary. Think back to a time when you felt truly fulfilled at work. Was it the money or was it something more? Like that feeling of being so engrossed in what you're doing that you completely lose track of time.
That's the power of motivators, right?
Yes.
Christensen nails it with that analogy of building the playhouse with his kids.
Uh-huh.
The real joy wasn't in the finished product, right? It was in the process itself, the designing, the hammering, the problem solving. And that's what's often missing in our day-to-day work lives, sadly.
And that takes us straight to Lee Hauron's story.
Exactly.
Right. He's pouring his heart and soul into this online education project. Truly believes it could have a real impact. But he keeps hitting a wall.
Yeah.
Because it seems like his company's priorities are all over the place.
Right.
They talk a big game about innovation, but their actions tell a different story.
It's like he's getting those hygiene factors for sure. A steady paycheck, the perceived security of a well-established company.
Right.
But those motivators, that sense of purpose, the thrill of tackling a truly meaningful challenge, those seem to be fading fast.
And this is where it gets really interesting, okay? Get ready to ask yourself some tough questions.
Okay.
Christensen's concept of aligning your resources with your strategy really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get caught in the daily grind, right? And lose sight of the bigger picture. Are we investing our time, energy, and talent in things that genuinely matter to us, or are we just spinning our wheels?
It all boils down to choices and their consequences, really. Christensen uses the example of Unilever to illustrate this. They were so focused on short-term profits that they nearly missed out on a game-changing innovation. Remember the whole Titan versus iLook dilemma?
Okay, yes, refresh my memory on those two again.
Right, so the Titan represents those big, splashy products that generate quick profits. It's like the safe bet, the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
But the iLook, this smaller, more affordable ultrasound device, had the potential to revolutionize healthcare.
Wow.
But it required a long-term vision, a willingness to invest in something that might not have that immediate payoff.
So if we connect this back to Lee Hauron, isn't his current job like that Titan?
Totally.
It's comfortable, it's familiar,
Yeah.
but it doesn't seem to be lighting his fire.
Exactly. And this new opportunity, this education technology startup, that's got iLook written all over it.
Yep.
A bit riskier, requires a different kind of investment, but ultimately potentially far more aligned with his passion for making a difference.
It's like we're almost conditioned to chase those titans, those safe bets.
Right.
But sometimes the most fulfilling opportunities, they kind of come knocking when we least expect it.
Absolutely.
Christensen talks about emergent strategies. It's those unexpected paths that kind of unfold organically, as we're navigating the unknown. Did you ever have one of those aha moments, a time when life took an unexpected turn and led you somewhere you never could have planned for?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And Christensen's own journey is a testament to that, right?
Yeah.
Remember how he talks about his friend, convincing him to start a company, even though being an entrepreneur wasn't part of his, original plan at all? But that experience, even though it eventually led him back to academia, it taught him, invaluable lessons about innovation and leadership that he might not have learned otherwise.
It's like that saying, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans.
No way.
But Christensen also emphasizes the importance of being intentional, right?
Yeah.
Like recognizing those unexpected opportunities when they present themselves and having the courage to sort of pivot when it feels right, just like Lee Hauron's doing now with this new opportunity. It's exciting, this education technology startup, but it's also a little bit terrifying, right?
Sure.
He's at a crossroads. He feels stuck in his current role, but he's also a little unsure about taking that leap. Have you ever felt that way?
All the time. You're kidding. It's a common dilemma, and that's where Christensen's discovery-driven planning comes in. It's not about having this, rigid 5-year plan, you know?
Okay.
It's more about approaching these big decisions almost like a detective gathering clues.
Okay.
It's about identifying the assumptions that we're making about these choices and finding ways to test them before we go all in.
So instead of Lee Haron just blindly jumping into the startup world, he could use this framework to ask himself, okay, what needs to be true for this startup to really align with my values, with my goals?
Exactly.
What are the potential challenges that I might face?
Yeah.
Almost like a pre-mortem for his career.
Exactly. Think of it like that cautionary tale Christensen shares about, Disney's theme park in Paris.
Oh, yes.
They made all these assumptions about visitor behavior based on their U.S. parks.
Right.
But they kind of skipped that crucial step of actually testing those assumptions in a different cultural context.
And it backfired spectacularly.
Oh, big time.
I mean, they built all those fancy hotels and restaurants expecting people to stay for days.
Right.
And visitors were like, yeah, we'll do Space Mountain, and then we're going to go get crepes by the Eiffel Tower.
Exactly.
Oh.
A costly mistake that highlights how crucial it is to validate our assumptions, not just in our careers, but in any big life decision.
So how can we apply this detective work to our own career aspirations? What assumptions are we making about the path that we're on or the path that we're considering? What questions could we be asking ourselves? Who could we talk to gather more information?
It's about being open to the possibility that, what we think we want might change.
Right.
It might evolve as we gather more information and actually test our assumptions in the real world.
It's about embracing the unknown, being open to that new information, being brave enough to course correct along the way. And who knows, that process of discovery, that might just lead you to an even more fulfilling destination than you could have imagined.
Absolutely.
It's almost like we could all use a personal board of directors.
Totally.
Like those trusted friends, mentors, maybe even a coach.
Right.
Who can help us see the bigger picture when we're, too close to a situation ourselves. They can ask us those tough questions, help us challenge those assumptions we didn't even know we were making.
What a brilliant way to think about it. I mean, we wouldn't launch a business or make a major investment without seeking guidance, right? From people who've been there, who've done that. So why do we so often navigate these crucial decisions in our careers and our personal lives without that same level of support?
It's so true. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. If you had to distill it down to one key takeaway, what's that one nugget of wisdom you hope listeners will walk away with from Christensen's insights and from Lee Haron's story?
For me, it all comes back to being intentional about how we spend our resources. And I'm not just talking about our time and money.
Right.
But our energy, our talents, our very attention, we only get so much of each, right? And once they're spent, they're gone.
Yeah.
So the question is, are we investing them in a way that's truly aligned with what matters most to us? Or are we just letting them slip away on things that ultimately don't fulfill us?
That reminds me of something else Christensen talks about.
Yeah.
That whole idea of prioritizing the urgent over the important.
Oh, yeah.
We get so caught up in, checking things off our to-do lists.
Right.
That we don't stop to ask ourselves, are these even the right things to be doing in the first place?
It's like that powerful image he paints of the executive who's so busy putting out fires at work that he's neglecting his family. Right. And he thinks he's doing the right thing by, providing for them financially, but at what cost?
Exactly.
He's missing out on those precious moments, those deep connections that truly make life meaningful.
And that really hits home when we think about Lee Haron's dilemma.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
He's trying to find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Between, his ambition, his desire to make a difference, and nurturing his personal life, which, let's be honest, it sounds like it's hanging on by a thread.
Right. He's caught in that, all too common trap of pouring so much of himself into his work that other parts of his life are suffering. He's, running and running.
Yeah.
But not necessarily towards anything that's going to bring him any lasting happiness.
So how do we break free from that cycle? How do we become more intentional, not just about our careers, but about, how we live our lives as a whole?
Well, it starts with asking ourselves those tough questions, right? The ones that we often try to avoid.
Yes.
The questions that Christensen challenges us to really sit with. How will you measure your life?
Yeah.
What does success truly look like? Not for your parents, not for your boss, but for you. What are the things that, light you up? The things that bring you joy? The values that you want to embody in the world?
And then the real work begins.
Right. Absolutely.
It's about making choices that align with those answers.
It's about having the courage to say no to the things that drain us.
Yes.
Even if they look good on paper, right?
Right.
So that we can say a resounding yes to the things that energize us, that bring us closer to the things we love, that make us feel truly alive.
And that's where, again, Christensen's discovery-driven planning comes into play.
Exactly.
Right. It's not about having all the answers up front.
Yep.
It's about, experimenting, testing our assumptions, being willing to adjust our sails as we learn and grow.
It reminds us there's no one-size-fits-all approach to life.
Right.
What works for your neighbor, your best friend, or even your role model might not be the right fit for you.
That's so true.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it's about defining success on our own terms, forging our own unique path, and ultimately discovering what truly makes this journey we call life worth taking. So, as we wrap up this deep dive today, we invite you to take a moment to reflect on these ideas. How will you measure your life? What will you choose to prioritize starting today? The answers to those questions just might surprise you, and they might just lead you to a more fulfilling life than you ever thought possible.